Hello, everybody. Back again with another fresh installment coming to you live with game number five. In this game, we have Gukesh then with the white pieces, and Ding's got the black pieces. And we'll see if there was any spice in this one, or did it end peacefully. We can see as the game's progressing now, the players are still tied at two each at the end of game four. So let's see how game five progressed. As we are nearing the halfway mark. Coefficient starts with 1 to e4, and Ding once again goes for e6, the French defense, as they did in game 1. Gukesh repeats them with d4, Ding goes d5, standard setup, and then Gukesh then goes for the exchange French, compared to game 1 where we had knight to c3, knight f6, e5, knight f to d7, f4, and c5. So a little bit of a different path taken now here by Gukesh by going into the exchange variation. Also just signaling that perhaps not trying to get that much out of the opening, although it's got its versatilities, but it is simpler in many ways to go about um, black answering the exchange French. So knight f3, we have knight to f6 then. After knight f6, bishop to d3. Standard moves then. c5. Thing is saying, okay, I'm gonna take over here in the center, attack your center. Standard move then is to respond with c3 or castling. So either to go c3 or castles. Top alternative. We have c3 and c4. Ding clamps down and attacks the bishop there. The bishop drops back to c2 and bishop to d6. Now, this was a very common setup in not too long ago in the candidates after queen e2 and queen e7 with takes. Anish Giri has this in the chessable course as well. It's been very well studied. And Nepo had this against Abbasov in the candidates not too long ago in the previous cycle. So these top players have been studying each other. Yeah, it's quite clear. Okay, king takes on e7, then we have castles, rook to e8, uh, rook to e1 check, king will drop to f8, and an exchange happens. So here we have bishop g5. And before we continue, it is worth noting that in Nepo Abbasov had gone for this b5, which was ultimately at the time quite new, the idea, but had lost that game. So that's why this was not followed to that extent. So bishop to g5, knight b to d7, knight b to d2, connecting knights for both sides. h6, thing is just kicking that bishop away. Bishop to h4 and knight to h5. Um, Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura had stated that g5, bishop g3, bishop takes g3, f takes g3, and knight h5 is sort of a forced draw on these lines as major pieces are liquidated. And since the queen's are already over, there's not that much to play for. But instead of g5, Ding went knight to h5, rook to e1 check. King f8 was played instantaneously in the live match. And then Gukesh just went g4. And this is where it seems Gukesh had faltered slightly a bit. G4 is a bit risky. Suggested here, instead of g4, would just be a simple bishop to d8. Okay, maybe not that simple to find. Knight f1 idea to maybe go e3 or g3. But g4 objectively is recommended, but optically seems a bit risky. Number one, first of all, opening a square for the knight to jump to f4, which is now an outpost, cannot be attacked by a pawn, for example, on the e file or g file, and this knight on f4 would then end up most likely jumping into d3, as which happens in the game, and we'll see how Gukesh quickly slips here. Knight to f4, bishop to g3, and knight to b6. So here we have after after knight after knight to b6, we have Gukesh going d5, and Ding even said by himself he was quite surprised by g5 because instead of g5 he expected knight to e5 and massive trades happen. Bishop takes e5, d takes e5, the knight drops to d3 as stated, bishop takes, pawn takes, and the knight after rook e3 comes to c4, attacking and pressuring the knight. The rook would take on d3. The knight takes on b2, attacking the rook. The rook would take the pawn on d5. So now currently a pawn up, but Ding gobbles that up quickly by capturing the loose pawn on g4 as played earlier on move 17. And then after rook to b5, the knight just drops to d1. And the game continues slightly better for black, but then again, also nothing to write home about. So after g5, we have h takes g5, and here Ding's the one just pressing and pushing for a slight advantage here. Knight takes on g5, correct by Gukesh, and bishop to d7. Bishop to d7, also just opening up for the rook to come into play. Knight back to f3, and rook to e8. Now knight to e5 happens. And this is the critical moment after bishop takes on e5. Objectively and logically, most players would just go rook takes e5, change the rooks, and then the pawn captures and it's dead drawn. But here Gukesh went d takes e5, and Ding has an advantage here. Obviously not the game-winning advantage, but definitely has chances. The game's not equal at all now. Ding's the one standing better. So after d takes e, Ding correctly plants his knight on d3, a beautiful knight. And this structure is looking very ominous, right? Because this is now sort of forced. If this is not played, white is in real trouble. So bishop takes d3, c takes d3. And this pawn is actually just two squares away from promotion. So it's very serious. And you have ideas of bishop b5, of bishop to f5 to protect the pawn, knight to c4, adding more pressure, right? So Ding is spoiled for choice right now. We're in a position now where it's really hard for black to lose. So Ding's playing for a 3.33 result game, which is okay, lost draw win, where Gukesh now is literally only got two possibilities from here on out, seemingly. It's either draw, right? Or win is generally now off the cards for white. Quickly then played by Gukesh to make space for the king to enter to come into the center. Okay, king f2, and then we have knight to c4. Yes, logically knight c4 makes sense, but the suggestion here is knight to a4, putting real pressure on b2, because after knight to a4, the rook would be forced into passivity to defend on b2. Of course, for example, if knight to b4 and you go b3, you're just losing your c3 pawn. If king f2, well, now you're just gobbling up a pawn, and it's really bad for white. In fact, if this had to happen, it's shifting now from a slightly better position to one could argue then that could be winning even or close to winning. But after f3, knight to c4 wasn't played and not knight to a4. After knight to a4, some trades occur, undoubling these pawns, which yes is now more likely to be drawn as we have opposite colored bishops, same amount of pawns. So it's a rook and bishop versus rook and bishop in 6-6, 6 pawns each for each side. So we have there. But we must notice one thing in these structures. Black's pawns are connected. He's got a connected passer. So black can press on here with maybe ideas of bishop e6, rook d8, and defending, right, on this d file. So after d takes c, which is uh, sort of the only move or the crucial move to find, and then after rook to e4, Ding goes bishop c6, which is signaling a draw or sort of a bail, right? Because bishop e6 definitely keeps the game going on for longer. After that, we'd have ideas of, let's say, bishop c6 or bishop e6, rook d4, and now rook c8 is defending. And thereafter, perhaps ideas of bishop d5 or f5 and just defending the pawn or applying more pressure. So, for example, bishop to f2, okay, and then suggesting some king g8 ideas, but let's go more active, rook c6, rook d8, rook king to e7, and the game continues. Here you would trade off, and you go into this endgame a pawn up, although yes, it is slightly equal, slightly better for black, it's most like it's equal, but black is the one that can really press here. All right, rook to e4 then, and after rook e4 we have bishop to c6. That thing basically saying you have to move your rook away now, and after the rook moves away, Would capture on f2, but then Gukesh, after king f2, and the pawn and the bishop dropping back to c6, Gukesh would just capture the c4 pawn. Suggested here was bishop h5, because if captures now, well, it's just lost because the pawn is run. So then Gukesh wouldn't even be able to leave the d file as the bishop is triangulating nicely or creating a sort of a triangular line defending on d2. If anything, the rook could also join there. So this rook could not leave the d file if the bishop went to h5. But instead of bishop h5, we have bishop to c6, and this allows white then to just capture on c4. After that, we have rook to d8, and now it's simple for Gukesh. He'll just play rook to d4 and force another trade. Um, rook to d4, rook takes d4, c takes d4, and now we have bishop to d5, attacking the a2 pawn, but not a problem, easy to defend. b3, king to e7, king to e3, king to e6, king takes on d3. And now in this endgame, when everything is said and done after g6, it is white who's upper pawn. But then again, because it's opposite colored bishops, and Ding's bishop guarding nicely on this diagonal, these pawns could never advance. Ding's king is quite active, nice square there on e6. And all Ding will just do is place his pawns on light squares, making it impossible for the dark square bishop to touch these light squared pawns. So after a6, we have king to d3, king to f5, king to a3, king to e6, king to d3, king to f5, king to e3, and king back to f5 and e6. And with that, on move 40, upon reaching time control, the players then agreed to withdraw. So all in all, if we look at this game and reflect, yes, perhaps Ting definitely had better chances in this game. And I think psychologically it's showing that Ting is growing more in confidence, as this is the second game now he's answered Kukesh's e4 with the French, and he's having no, he's getting better positions out of the opening. Kukesh is the one that must be feeling perhaps at this point in time, but as if he's struggling to produce something here with white, with the e4, and Ding is just really answering really solidly with the French. Perhaps maybe also slight disappointment that we couldn't make more of the game, but then again, it's the black pieces, and he's doing what he has to do to answer white, and at the bare minimum not lose, right? And that's what he's doing. So very exciting. We have game six coming up in a few hours, and game six has been known, or at least the hallmark of World Championship chess, to really produce fireworks and flames. So we will see what game six brings. Will there be more draws? Will there be decisive action? I am betting my money that it's going to be a fight this time, and there will be a result. But do tune in again for the next one, and we will be covering game six in the next couple hours. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Take care.